Can we observe the activities of our own minds? What part of your mind feels? What part of your mind thinks? And what is the part of your mind that has to do with right and wrong? First of all, the mind is not the same thing as the brain. The immaterial metaphysical mind interfaces with the material physical brain and is the life inside of us that distinguishes one as a human being instead of just a human body. The human mind contains the immaterial personality of the soul and is the part of man where we actually sense, think, and choose. Unlike our body or brain, the mind itself is not empirically observable. You can't physically touch it or look at it under a microscope. And yet, everyone can observe the basic workings of his or her own mind through the function of one's self-consciousness. Self-consciousness is our own awareness that we experience the world outside of ourselves, that we gain knowledge and learn from our experiences, and that we are aware that we make decisions in response to our experiences and knowledge. Self-consciousness is much like a security camera on the wall. It is virtually always watching, recording, and making its audience aware of the mind's activities. Except in cases where the mind is impaired due to being under the influence of substances, injury, illness, or sleep. Like that security camera, the self-consciousness is always capable of observing the workings of one's mind. Because of this, we can identify three fundamental powers or faculties of the mind: sensibility, intellect, and will. Sensibility, the faculty of feeling.
Ooh, pink and sparkly! I like that!
Functions of the sensibility include the capacity to experience input from your five senses. Right now, you can observe the brightness from the screen on which you're watching this video, the temperature of your environment, the sound of your mouse button clicking the subscribe button below. Or what about the taste of the snack you're eating? Or maybe you're not eating a snack right now. Seriously though, you're watching theology videos and you're not eating a snack? What's wrong with you? Just imagine what you could be experiencing. You could be enjoying freshly baked chocolate chip cookies right now. What's stopping you? I mean, come on, break and bakes are like what, $2 at Walmart? The sensibility not only contains the capacity to receive sensory information, but it also contains your desires and emotions. You may feel angry when you stub your toe. You probably feel happy when you eat your favorite dessert. You feel sad when a beloved character dies in a movie. Yet you feel relieved when the villain of the movie is defeated. When it comes to our feelings, we all naturally desire to have good feelings, which is why mankind naturally pursues happiness. Happiness is, well, good. No one ever wants to feel bad for the sake of feeling bad. Happiness is valuable. It is through our sensibility that we first develop the idea of what is good or bad. Or again, what is valuable and what is not. Our emotions or feelings also serve us by allowing us to enjoy or appreciate that which is good or experience displeasure toward that which is not. The idea of what is good or valuable becomes pivotal to all our reasoning and decision-making. But our feelings cannot be directly chosen. Feelings themselves are involuntary. Our feelings are a result of that which enters our mind or a result of what we choose to think about. But feelings themselves cannot be directly chosen. We must use other faculties of mind to indirectly affect our feelings, which we'll talk more about in a moment. Since our feelings are involuntary results of what enters our mind, it's usually wise to think before we act based only on our feelings. Though we can choose to follow the impulses of our feelings, we can get ourselves into a lot of trouble if we don't first consult our reason.
What have you done?
Well, I went to the store on an empty stomach, and somehow I bought out the bakery? Which brings us to the next faculty of mind, intellect, the faculty of thinking. Actually, intellect is spelled with 2 L's. The intellect is the thinking part of your mind. The intellect is all about information. The intellect recognizes, categorizes, and remembers information. It also reasons concerning how one can and should act upon that information. Unlike our feelings, the thoughts of the intellect can be directly chosen. This happens every time you choose to recall something from your memory, or make a choice to dwell upon a thought that enters your mind. However, similar to the sensibility, the thoughts of our intellect can also be involuntary. Consider when an advertisement pops up on the screen, or a billboard on the highway puts an image or message in your mind.
Oh yeah, that's a great idea.
What about involuntary sensory experiences? Like when a scent you remember from early childhood triggers memories and feelings that you'd long forgotten about. Thoughts like these enter the mind involuntarily, but we also voluntarily recall thoughts from our memory. The memory is part of our intellect. The memory is the record of consciousness and contains the facts and information of our experiences and knowledge that we've acquired so far in life. Another part of the intellect is the reason. The reason can take multiple pieces of information, compare them to one another, and suggest the best determination. With moral situations, the reason will reference the conscience to decide on the right course of action to take. The conscience is also part of our intellect. Our conscience is the impartial judge of the moral character of the mind. The conscience impresses upon us our moral obligation to choose good instead of evil according to our knowledge, and in not just our small decisions, but especially concerning the overall moral intention of one's life. Though the conscience's allegiance cannot be changed from good to evil, the conscience can be quieted if one ignores it and chooses to act against its judgments. When we choose to ignore the judgments of our conscience and act against our knowledge of right and wrong, we not only incur moral guilt, but we actually begin to feel guilty. Whoa. This video is getting kind of serious. All this talk of conscience, obligation, and guilt, it's getting totally judgy. Like seriously, why can't we just talk about something nice again? Like freshly baked chocolate chip cookies. That's like really a thing. It's hard to not think about them. In fact, the more I think about them, the more I want them. Hey, sweetie!
Yeah? What is it?
Hey, I'll be done with this video in a few minutes. We've got at least $2 in our bank account, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Great. Could you run to the store for me?
Sure, no problem.
Which brings us to the final faculty of mind. Will, the faculty of choosing.
Make it so.
The will is the executive faculty of the mind. As the decision maker, the will determines the course of action that will be chosen or refrained from. Our feelings and thoughts will motivate us to choose something, but the will makes the final decision on how to respond. After feeling, sensing, thinking, and reasoning, the will makes a choice. This choice may be an outward action, like walking through a door or saying something out loud. But more than that, every choice is first a mental determination. The will is creatively free to choose one option over another, but this doesn't mean the will is independent or has absolute freedom. The will does have limitations. Our free will is not free in the following ways. First, the will is always influenced by motivations from other functions of the mind. It does not function independently of them, though it can choose which motivations to obey. Also, the will cannot act if there are no motivations present. If there is no possible choice, the will cannot act. Consider also that the will can only act regarding real options. Impossible or illogical options like choosing to defy gravity or choosing not to have existed previously are impossible options that the will cannot choose. Another limitation is that the will cannot choose not to choose when influenced. You may choose not to act in any given situation, but inaction itself is a choice. Remember, the mental determination itself is what constitutes the choice. You are always choosing. You're choosing right now. Are you eating cookies yet? If you are or are not, it is because of your choice. But is it right or wrong for you to be eating cookies? The answer to that important question all comes down to why. Why? The morality of any choice hinges upon this little word. Why is the intention behind the choice that determines moral character. For example, you could shove someone over with selfish intentions.
Yes!
Or you could shove someone over intending to save their life.
Look out!
The outward action chosen here is identical, but the intention behind the choice determines whether the will is choosing selfishness or love. The will is the faculty of the mind which defines one's moral character. The will is free to make mental determinations that intend selfishness or love. The mental determinations of your own mind are possible to observe. So, practice observing how your own feelings come about. Observe how thoughts enter your mind and recognize that regardless of how you may feel, or how much or little you know, the mental determinations of your will are yours alone to choose. So consider what is truly valuable according to God and yield to His truth. Motivated by love, you can obey the greatest commandment and choose the highest good for God and for your neighbor. Finally, that video took forever.